Are you coming home for New Year's this year?
I haven't earned any money, Mom.
Talk to your boss. The New Year is right around the corner. Mom's here waiting for you. As the Lunar New Year approaches, an unemployed migrant worker is faced with the difficult task of telling his mother that he won't be home for the holidays. In China, there is a distinct group known as migrant workers. They have rural household registrations, but work and reside in cities. Their meager plots of land back home are unable to support their families, and they are forced to leave behind their elderly parents and young children to seek opportunities in faraway cities. The construction industry, one of the largest employers of migrant workers, has provided job opportunities for millions over the past 2 decades due to the real estate and infrastructure boom. However, with the economic downturn, finding employment has become increasingly challenging for migrant workers. According to the 2022 Migrant Workers Monitoring and Survey Report released by the Chinese National Bureau of Statistics, there were a total of over 295 million migrant workers in the country in 2022, with 17.7% of them engaged in the construction industry. This means that at least 52 million migrant workers rely on the construction industry to make a living. Nevertheless, with the decline in the real estate market, finding work has become even more challenging for construction workers at the lowest end of the industry supply chain. After 3 years of the pandemic, China's economy is increasingly deteriorating, leading to the closure of numerous small and medium-sized enterprises and shops. Job opportunities have become scarcer, and what were once bustling towns now have few customers, with stores nearly empty. Many unemployed individuals in Shenzhen are forced to sleep on the streets. The labor markets in Guangzhou are filled with people looking for work. This is Shenzhen Longhua Station. A large number of migrant workers who cannot find jobs and cannot afford to stay in hotels can only sleep on the floor under the eaves of the station. This is the Wuchang Railway Station in Hubei. Migrant workers who have no money to return home sleep in the underground parking lot. People arrive at the labor market as early as 4 a.m. hoping to find employment, with some even having only one meal a day. Some have gone for days without finding a job. Some elderly laborers struggle to find work and earn a living. Here's an interview with an older migrant worker.
Nowadays, ordinary people can't make money, can't afford to eat. Sometimes, we don't even have money for meals, and we can't even earn our living expenses.
Sir, how old are you?
I'm in my 60s. I used to work as a tile worker, but there's no work. Even as an unskilled laborer, there's no work. There's no demand for labor in big projects, and they don't hire me due to my age. Having skills is useless. There's no work. Whether the pay is high or low, it's difficult to earn money. As an unskilled laborer, even if you can make 20 or 30 yuan a day, it's fine. But without any work, even earning 20 yuan is difficult. I've worked for 10 days and earned 5 or 600 yuan, but it's still not enough to eat. As long as there's work and food, it's fine for us. We don't have high requirements. You can understand this. Everyone can't afford to eat anymore. With 10 yuan left, we can eat for several days, but we only eat plain steamed buns, no vegetables or anything else. You can ask these people if I'm telling the truth.
On January 9th of this year, a short video titled 30 Years of Such Labor was released by NetEase News, depicting the harsh reality of China's migrant workers. It gained widespread attention from netizens but was quickly banned by Chinese authorities. However, the video continued to circulate widely on overseas social media platforms. In the video, migrant workers from Hefei, Anhui province faced genuine struggles for their livelihoods. Some started waiting for work as early as 4 a.m. Some had very low living standards. Some couldn't afford the 380 yuan, $53, required for medical insurance, and some found it challenging to support their children. Over the years, not only have they not seen an improvement in their living standards despite China's rise, but they are facing more pressure due to the recent economic downturn. A WeChat user said that if the country could allocate 200 billion yuan annually to subsidize those with the lowest incomes, it could significantly improve their situation. However, the CCP appears to prioritize international diplomacy over its own citizens' welfare. According to the Aid Data report, China provided economic assistance and loans totaling a staggering $851 billion to 165 countries between 2000 and 2017. On January 10th, mainland Chinese media outlet Yicai published an article about migrant workers who show up looking for work early in the morning. However, it was quickly removed. The article portrayed the daily job-seeking experiences of a migrant worker named Zhang Zhong, showcasing the harsh reality of searching for odd jobs in the largest labor market in Zhengzhou, Henan province. Before 4 a.m., Zhang Zhong hurried out, knowing that if he arrived late, there would be no work left. Accompanied by a reporter, Zhang Zhong arrived at the Liuwan labor market in Zhengzhou, the largest hub for day laborers in the city. Despite the early hour, the market was already packed with people, mostly migrant workers who had come from all over the country in search of work. Many wore safety helmets. Zhang Zhong explained that as winter sets in, many construction sites shut down, marking the lean season for migrant workers to find work. Even so, there are still 5,000 to 6,000 people gathering at this market every day. Having searched for work in the Liuwan labor market for over a decade, Zhang Zhong said that compared to previous years, there are fewer people here at this time of the year. During the peak season of the construction industry in previous years, over 20,000 migrant workers would come here every day to find daily wage labor. They work for 9 hours a day, and their wages are paid daily. Many migrant workers, including Zhang Zhong, endure the harsh weather and stand on the roadside to solicit work because of the daily wage system at Liuwan labor market. They can receive their earnings as soon as they finish their day's work, a crucial factor for them. They fear delayed or withheld wages, a risk they don't have to take when working at Liuwan, unlike some other construction sites where they may have to wait until the end of the year or face the possibility of wage arrears. Many of the migrant workers soliciting work at the Liuwan labor market have experienced wage arrears from construction and subcontracting companies. A year ago, Zhang Zhong worked at a construction site at the second affiliated hospital of Zhengzhou University for nearly 6 months, but was ultimately owed over 20,000 yuan, over $2,700 in wages, which he has yet to recover. This has left him wary of trusting employers. On January 2nd, Zhang Zhong arrived at the Liuwan labor market around 4 a.m., but stood by the roadside in the freezing wind until 6 p.m. without finding a job. Zhang Zhong told the reporter that he now only has 87 yuan left. If I can't find work tomorrow, even eating will become a problem. With the economic downturn and declining ethics, incidents of employers absconding with money and wage arrears for workers have become more common. Migrant workers often resort to actions like holding banners to demand unpaid wages or, in extreme cases, even attempting suicide. On January 19th, Fosun International Center in Jinan, Shandong Province, owed workers wages for 2021 to 2022, which still remain unpaid. Helpless workers had no choice but to sleep outside the company's gates to seek their wages. In Kangding, Sichuan Province, China Railway 12th Bureau owed wages to migrant workers and failed to address their concerns, prompting workers to protest. On December 27th, in Donggang City, Liaoning Province, Dandong Changlong Machinery Manufacturing Company owed wages to workers, leading them to demand their unpaid wages. December 27th, Beihai City, Guangxi, Hepu Maritime Silk Road, First Port Scenic Area. The workers blocked the road to demand wages, and then a leader drove his car toward the workers. On December 9th, in Jiaozhuo, Henan Province, a group of migrant workers demanding unpaid wages were assaulted by security guards. As of 2018, China had a population of 1.4 billion people, with 560 million residing in rural areas. On January 17, 2024, during the 2023 National Economic Performance Press Conference, the director of the National Bureau of Statistics stated that the total number of migrant workers in 2023 was 297.5 million, accounting for 53% of the total rural population. Migrant workers continue to increase year by year, primarily concentrated in eastern coastal cities. Since the 1900s, a large number of rural farmers have migrated to cities to seek job opportunities, taking up various roles in construction sites, manufacturing plants, commercial buildings, restaurants, cleaning, and even as delivery and food delivery workers on the streets. Over the past 3 decades, migrant workers have been the cheapest labor force in China's economic development. Migrant workers' rights are not adequately protected. They receive low wages for dirty and strenuous work and often work overtime. They typically work 6 days a week, nearly 9 hours a day. Although they live in urban areas, they lack the rights and benefits enjoyed by urban residents, facing discrimination due to China's household registration system, also known as hukou. Only half of them have labor contracts, and their social security coverage is lower than that of urban residents. They are also frequently victims of employers absconding with money and being owed wages. China's unique hukou system essentially enslaves rural migrant workers, turning them into second-class citizens in their own country. According to the Household Registration Regulations issued in 1958, there are two main categories of hukou: agricultural hukou and non-agricultural hukou. A report from the Social Development Research Department of the State Council Development Research Center of China stated that more than 20 personal rights are tied to hukou, including employment, education, social security, and family planning, among others. This means that hundreds of millions of migrant workers have no access to basic public services in cities, severely limiting their health, development, and survival opportunities while making it difficult for them to assert their rights in employment relationships. Vulnerable due to the lack of protection and social status, migrant workers continue to endure challenging conditions and remain second-class citizens. Meanwhile, employers withholding wages has become a common occurrence. The hukou system places rural migrant workers in a vulnerable position, making it challenging for them to negotiate with employers, especially regarding wages and working conditions. In contrast, urban residents with local hukou do not face these difficulties. Furthermore, the transient nature of migrant workers often results in incomplete or even non-existent employment contracts with employers, sometimes involving third-party intermediaries. These factors collectively render migrant workers more susceptible to exploitation and abuse. Apart from the hukou system, land ownership restrictions also hinder the development of rural populations. China's current constitution, established in 1982, specifies that land in rural areas and urban suburbs, except for the state-owned land as stipulated by law, is collectively owned. Homestead land, and private hills are also collectively owned. These limitations mean that farmers cannot freely buy, sell, or lease land, restricting their opportunities for large-scale farming and wealth accumulation. They are also unable to use land as collateral for loans, making it difficult to raise funds for investments or access additional resources for development. The hukou system also leads to educational resource inequality, resulting in issues like left-behind children. China's industrialization and urbanization have led to significant reduction in rural populations, resulting in a shortage of rural labor, abandoned land, and a surge in left-behind elderly and children. Nearly 100 million rural children grow up in environments without their parents due to their inability to attend public schools in cities. Children of migrant workers do not qualify for public education resources in cities, and private schools are often unaffordable. As a result, millions of rural children are left without their parents for extended periods, leading to severe psychological and educational issues. These challenges make it even more difficult for them to change their destinies or achieve social mobility. The children of migrant workers often end up following in their parents' footsteps and become permanent second-class citizens as well. According to data from the Chinese Ministry of Education, there were more than 15 million left-behind children in compulsory education in 2017. A 2015 report from UNICEF shows that China has 100 million children affected by population mobility. Many migrant workers constantly switch between factories, industries, and regions to make a living. They drift from place to place, making it difficult for them to establish roots anywhere. Jeffrey Crothall, the English website editor of the China Labor Bulletin, stated, "The difficulties faced by Chinese migrant workers have persisted for decades, with issues like low wages and lack of welfare protection remaining unchanged. While in some smaller inland cities, migrant workers have integrated into society to some extent, in larger cities like Beijing and Shanghai, they are still considered second-class citizens." On July 5, 2023, commentator Wang Jian discussed the dire situation of China's 86 million abandoned first-generation migrant workers. Mr. Zhao works as a security guard in a residential community in Beijing. He is originally from Zhumadian, Henan province, and started working in Beijing in 2000. He is single and 49 years old. He has worked as a gatekeeper and in landscaping, but currently lives in a basement without heating, measuring only 10 square meters. He works 10 hours a day and earns 2,700 yuan, $376. Mr. Zhao hasn't taken a vacation in 7 years, and his future retirement pension will be only a little over 100 yuan. He plans to work until he's 70. Associate professor and sociologist Qiu Fengxian from Anhui Normal University conducted a survey, distributing 2,500 questionnaires and interviewing 200 people. She focused on China's first-generation migrant workers who have over 30 years of work experience. Their numbers have reached 86 million, making it a substantial demographic. Their living conditions are generally similar to Mr. Zhao's. First-generation migrant workers receive retirement pensions of only a couple of hundred yuan, and their savings are less than 50,000 yuan. They lack social security, and their monthly retirement pensions amount to only 100 or 200 yuan. 76% of these migrant workers in their 60s and older cannot retire at home. They have to continue working in the city to earn money until they can't anymore. The situation for first-generation migrant workers in their later years is incredibly bleak and pitiable. They don't belong to the city, and they no longer belong to the countryside. They can't return to the countryside and can't rely on their children for support like the previous generation of elderly parents. Despite dedicating their entire lives to their children, their offspring may end up becoming migrant workers like them. After being abandoned by the city, the 86 million first-generation migrant elderly have no one to rely on. They helped build the city, but have no place in it. The CCP has never regarded ordinary people as individuals. When the people need to be exploited, the governments are the comrades of the rural migrant workers. When they are no longer needed, they are classified as the low-end population. When the government needs revenue, these workers become taxpayers, but when they demand benefits from their tax dollars, they are seen as a destabilizing factor. The CCP has abandoned them. In 2021, Dexter Roberts, a senior correspondent for Bloomberg based in Beijing, published a book titled The Myth of Chinese Capitalism: The Worker, the Factory, and the Future of the World. The book sheds light on the hardships faced by China's rural migrant workers behind the facade of economic prosperity, depicting them as pawns abandoned by the CCP. Roberts, who lived in China for 23 years, expressed concern for the fate of these workers and conducted first-hand research to reveal that the CCP's proclaimed success in its 40 years of reform and opening up is built upon the collaboration between bureaucrats and businesses exploiting rural labor. Roberts pointed out that rural incomes in China are only one-third of urban incomes, with only 13% of rural males graduating from high school. Approximately 61 million children of workers are forced to live separately from their parents. Under the current hukou system, 1/10 of Chinese citizens are treated as second-class citizens within their own country. He wrote that in order to extract the maximum benefits from this population, the hukou system was established to deprive them of their legitimate rights to employment, education, and healthcare in urban areas. They endure extremely low wages, harsh working conditions, and arbitrary detention by the police, making them second-class citizens of China. China's rural population continues to struggle at the bottom rungs of society. They have not only failed to benefit from China's nearly 3 decades of economic growth, but have also become sacrificial pawns. They face severe social inequality, unceasing exploitation by the government and businesses, discrimination under the hukou system, and the pain of family separation. With the depletion of the demographic dividend, the accumulated grievances of these workers could potentially become a catalyst for the collapse of the CCP regime, leading to social upheaval.